Good evening, everyone, and welcome to, oopsie, pardon me. Welcome to the meeting of the 24th of January. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:30. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting of council by accessing the meeting, which will be live streamed on our Middlesex Centre YouTube channel, or by contacting the municipal clerk to receive a link to join the meeting electronically. Members of the public may also attend the meeting in person at the Ilderton Community Centre located at 11368 Ilderton Road in Ilderton. So there are no additions to our agenda this evening. Are there members who have any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Shipley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 8.1 for the paperwork out, my clerk is a no.
Thank you for that. Okay, the first item tonight is under delegations, presentations, and petitions. We have the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority speaking to restoration project for 11602 Miller Road. And it's Tyler Elias Thornton, who is the Eastern District Stewardship Technician, who is going to be presenting. Oh, there you are. I'll turn mine off. You'll have to put yours on. I'll turn mine off and then just go ahead and do your presentation.
Thank you very much for introducing me. Yep, like I said, I'm with the Lower Thames Conservation Authority. I just want to thank you all for having me here today to go over what essentially will be a restoration project proposal for municipal land site, and it's at the 11620 Miller Road. So yeah, if we can just go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so just want to clarify, it says project location 11602. So that actually brings you to the end of the road. It was brought to my attention the actual parcel in question is 11620 Miller Road. But the main goal of this project would be for habitat creation and then with the benefits of soil erosion and nutrient loading. As you can see on the map there, those would be the areas that we wish to restore and implement. It's approximately 16 acres in total. And we want to complete this, I recommend completing this in 3 phases. The first phase would be in the spring, where we would be doing tree planting, which would consist of about 10 acres, and you would look at approximately 5,000 seedlings for that. We do all of our tree planting come May. Phase 2 would be a proposed 1 acre wetland pond, which typically we do in the fall when it's drier conditions, so the excavators and stuff can get down there. And then we would want to plant 5 acres of tall grasses around the wetland area. But if we can go to the next slide, please. So our proposal for the tree planting, which is the most immediate item right now, we would be looking at machine planting 5,000 trees. The LTVCA would do the machine planting. It would be a mixture of native coniferous and deciduous trees. There's 8 species total that would make up those 5,000 seedlings. We get our allocated stock from various nurseries, but we usually receive our stock at the beginning of May, and then we look to immediately be planting them after the fact. So you can look in that around mid-May for when we look to actually establish and plant the trees. So there's just a cost breakdown of what everything kind of comes to, including the machine labor, the price of the different tree species. Comes to about 15 grand, and once taxes applied to that, it comes to about 17,000. But then with our funders that we have currently provided to be able to assist with the program, they take away that the total incentives right there, which is 15,500. So leaving a remaining balance for the municipality of Middlesex Center, it would be 1,490 and 23 cents for the overall scope of work just for the tree planting. And again, we'd be looking at doing that in the spring. I know it's kind of blocked out from the script there, but the deadline for the tree orders, it says February 5th. Our nurseries where we get our stock from, We just want to ensure, especially since if this was to go through, it's such a large quantity of trees and allocated stock that we need from the nurseries. We want to make sure that we prioritize and that they have the necessary amount of trees for the species we have allocated towards this project. The true deadline is in actuality the beginning of March for the final, but it is kind of like pressing if this was to go through to make sure to get that stock in place to make sure that what we have for the trees is in place and that the nurseries are good to go for that order. Next slide, please. So, oh, sorry, just the one before. Sorry, please go back one, please. Yeah, my apologies. So just talking about the site preparation. So just prior to us going in there and actually planting, we just need the land like worked up. That could be via like rototiller or something like that, or even just what was there prior was used for agricultural, like a cash crop, and there was corn. So there's just remaining corn stalks right now. If those just could be like cut just by a lawnmower, then we'd be able to have accessibility to go in there and machine plant. So that's the only site prep that would be needed. And then when you're looking at like post prep for once the trees have been planted, you just want to really mitigate the weed growth around. So I've actually been in talk with Andrew, which is the manager of operations, and seeing what type of mower and machinery that he has to be able to cut, because he said there's a good possibility that he'd be able to assist with maintenance after the site has been implemented. But it's just a matter of making sure that we space the trees accordingly for the machinery that he would use to cut in between. So, and then also to help mitigate weeds in that area. It's not you don't have to do this by any means, but it's an option that in the March we spread clover cover, and that just helps. It's a cheap alternative way to also mitigate and suppress weeds around, because weeds are the biggest thing that will affect the success rate and the survival of the trees once planted. Next slide. So then the next phase, once the trees are planted, we'd be looking at excavating a 1 acre pond on the eastern portion, which you could have seen from the map before where it was in the field. So like it says, the wetland will be excavated in an open low-lying area with varying depths ranging from 1 to 5 feet. It's that way because it helps promote different waterfowl coming in. That's kind of what they're looking for, and it has different flora and fauna. You get different flora and fauna species growing from that ranging depths. The wetland would be implemented in an area that experiences seasonal flooding down in there. You've seen on the map, but it's in like it's in an oxbow right on the Thames River. So it's in an area of high significance as well, being so close to the Thames in that oxbow. So yeah, the wetland would be implemented in an area that experiences seasonal flooding, and it would naturally capture surface water runoff surrounding the wetland. The proposed wetland will maintain current flow, creating an open area for water to pool. After excavation, the native tall grasses will be planted on the disturbed areas to stabilize the soil. So that kind of like dips into what the next proposed phase would be. Typically, our native grasses that we would plant would be a mixture of switchgrass, Indian grass, and big blue stem. The spoils from the wetland area would be spread around the remaining area, primarily on the north and east side, with some on the west, and low berms will be created, just have a nice contour for the wetland and encourage surface runoff into it. And then slopes will be low gradients, creating smooth gradual slopes from the berm into the wetland. Those are the cost breakdown for that right now, because this wouldn't be applied into the fall. Haven't had like a set breakdown like with the trees, because that would be happening sooner, and then we'd be looking into different funding options. So it's just to be dated right now, but we get funding from DUC and WECP in regards to that, and you could see a typical breakdown. They would significantly lower the cost for the municipality for that. And then that's, just to reiterate where the wetland, where we'd be proposing on putting it. Next slide, please. And then the third and final phase that we're proposing would be, again, once the trees are in, once the wetland is in and established, then we'd go and we drill seed 5 acres of native tall grasses of that mix that I was explaining before. With majority of the seed being planted to the east and south. Site preparation is typically the same as the trees. Just have the land like worked up so there's no weeds or anything in there when we're establishing and drill seeding. And then there's just kind of like a cost of how it breaks down for when we are drill seeding for that. And again, not actual numbers are on there because that would be established at a much later date. And then next slide. So that would just be the tall grasses on the eastern end surrounding the wetlands to break that up. And then next slide. So I kind of went over this as I was going through the presentation, but just to reiterate on post-implementation preparation. Once the trees have been planted in the spring, maintenance of mitigating weed growth surrounding the plants, especially in the first 3 years, is vital to their success. This would need to be conducted on a routine basis throughout the warmer months, so spring to fall, when the weeds grow. And until the trees have reached a sufficient height where they're not like out trying to compete for the solar light with the weeds. And this is, again, just best means is planting like a clover crop or a cover crop just to help mitigate and suppress it, or just by routinely just taking a lawnmower and cutting in between the rows. When we machine plant, we have nice firm rows, so it's easy for maintenance for the lawnmowers to go back and forth. LTBCA also can assist in maintenance if the public works, if Andrew gets back to me for whatever reason, he's not able to assist. The LTBCA also provides a service where we'd be able to assist with that, not free of charge. And then the tall grass, post preparation, once the tall grasses have established, they should be cut annually after July 31st of the corresponding year in a high mow fashion, because it promotes the growth and makes them healthy for the native grasses, and it mitigates the weed growth respectively. And that's that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you kindly for that presentation, Tyler. We'd like to council for questions. I see, we'll start with Councillor Bruce. I see your hand too, Deputy Mayor.
So I have a few questions. I'm just looking at the wetland location map, if we go to that. Okay, because it's just flip that up. So yeah, I think it's up 2 or 3 slides in. Yeah, okay, so it's the 4th slide in. There it is. Okay, so just so that I know, and I'm the council for 5. Miller Road is the ribbon to the right coming into the property. This is the former dump site. All right, so I know farming was going on in this area too. I don't think the person has leased the land from us or anything. That's okay. So if you're going to do something, they have to be, I'm not going to give you the name, but they have to be told they can't farm again. Go back over what you guys have done. I think it's a good thing. This is part of, I think, the restoration of the former landfill site. Like right now, it's just sitting in grass, so it's not a bad thing. The other thing I was going to ask, did we approach you or did you just come forward as a conservation authority to do this?
So this, to my knowledge, was actually brought by
Microphone.
So
Ducks Unlimited. They do a lot of land projects. So it was actually brought to our attention by them. This was last year, I believe, and nothing really like formed of it. And so then it just came back up. So then I reached Dan Anderson, went out there, had a site visit with him because, again, like he was interested from DUC last time, but like I said, the ball never really rolled from there. So got a hold of him, went out there, conducted a site visit with him, and then ultimately led us here today. So
the fall. And so the maintenance here that you're asking us to do, is it just initially till the trees get growing to keep the grass from overcoming the trees, or is this maintenance where we're gonna be cutting grass forever?
So, for the maintenance, definitely not having to cut it forever, but again, for the trees, in specific, prior to them planting, it's just a matter of like, cutting the stalks down to make sure we get the machine planter in there to be able to go in there, or having something like a cover crop to mitigate the weeds. But then post, planting, it's really for the first 3 years that you'd be looking at going in there. Again, it's kind of like, you see how like the weeds, how high they are, because if the weeds are higher than the trees, because obviously they're going to be growing quicker than the trees at the initial stages in its life, then they're not going to get that solar. They're going to be outcompeted, and then it might not have as high of a success or survival rate on it. But it would only be for the first 3 years mainly that you're looking until those trees have established a certain root system in height where they don't have to worry about the weeds outcompeting for that. You're welcome. Thank you.
Deputy?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. First question is, what is the success rate of the trees? How many trees are you plant 10,000? Year 1, year 2, year 3, how many are going to be left?
So anything can change the change. I can't give like a true answer because the amount of rain that it gets for that, just the type of conditions that I won't know until nature presents itself. But typically, like we choose the species that we've chosen for this property based on its soil conditions, where it's located in an open area. It should have a good chance of success, and typically you would see about 85%.
Secondly, the cost of us mowing this for the first 3 years, is that included in our share of this project? Like the cost of maintaining the weeds, and is that part of our cost, or is that extra?
That would be extra. That is not on the invoicing for this. The invoicing is the cost of the tree species alone, and then after the fundings break down. So no, there would still be a cost associated, and like I said, depending on if like the public's work isn't able to assist, the LTBCA is able to assist, but I don't have an exact cost on what that would be right now.
Through you, Madam, one last one to Scott. Scott, it's going to be your department that's probably going to have to cutting this out. Is this going to be something that we're capable of handling? Is it going to cost us extra staff, or can you have any insights into that?
Through the mayor, it's certainly something we can handle. It's an area that we haven't really done in the past. It's been always Lower Thames that have done the grass cutting, but certainly the area is something that we can absorb into our plan.
And Councillor Arts.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Tyler. This has been previously cropped agricultural land, and it's an odd shape. I don't know what kind of sprayer they had when they were applying chemicals, but do you do a analysis of the soil to make sure it won't kill all the trees the first year? Like, I don't know what was used the previous few years.
I don't believe you have an analysis, but I would usually feel like most herbicides, like after they've been, applied, they usually only affect like that target species, like the crop that they're doing, and then typically would not cause any harm like after a week. Like it's hard to say what the leaching is in the soil, but also a lot of that probably has already entered the Thames and is gone because it is in an area where when there's high rain events that it experiences like seasonal flooding. So that water at times will come up to where that land is, and that water would have washed what is there already away. So actually by planting the trees and stuff like that, it's actually forming as an aid for like nutrient loading.
Another question I had is how expensive is this ryegrass seed? Because the 2,000 an acre to prep the site to plant the ryegrass, that was kind of blowing my mind. If I'd lived closer, I could tell you I could do it better than that.
Actually, just for this, do you mind registering that for me? Sure.
Hi there, my name's Greg Van Every. I'm the Conservation Services Coordinator at the at Lower Thames. Yes, the cost of the native seed is drastically high. The $2,000 per acre does include the drill seeding and the crew to drill seed that. So that is an all-in price for a seed mix of 4 different native species, and the drill seeder and the crew to go out and do that, and the machines to do that. But yes, you're correct. It's very expensive to do the native tall grass seed. It's very there's not a lot of supply, and what supply is out there is in reasonably high demand. So
One more question, Mayor. This is probably for our department. When you plant those trees, were they gonna be this high? Could you flag the odd one here and there? Because we've planted trees before and I've gone to trim them up and they go nuts. There's one less again. But they're gonna be hard to see. And if you have somebody, just like I said, flag the odd one, or we can come back in Scott and flag it. Because like I said, I've made the mistake myself planting trees around our place. Just thanks.
We can definitely put flags in there. That is not a problem. Oh, sorry, was that directed towards?
Let's going to jump over to Rob for a minute because there's some background here with respect to what's been happening in what order. And maybe it would be enlightening just to see what's been happening and what the next steps are and where you're at in the process.
Yep. So sorry, through Madam Mayor to Council. Yeah, so Ducks Unlimited reached out to Public Works Department probably 2022, and Dan Anderson had met with them first. So certainly we'd be looking to have some further conversations with Lower Thames and come back with a staff report to council as well with recommendations. So
I guess just want to be clear, this is not a done deal. There's work in progress and clarifications and dollar amounts involved and ongoing dollar amounts. So, okay, is anyone else? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Burrs.
Just a comment. Ducks Unlimited is a highly regarded organization. Okay, when they get involved in stuff, they know what they're doing. So, and there's money behind them.
If there are no more questions this evening, then I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming and giving us an overview and answering all the questions and educating us in the process. So we'll look forward to next steps and see how this moves forward. Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good evening, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 4.2, which is the Fisher Watt Municipal Drain Consideration Report. We have Mike DeVos from Spirit Associates to provide an overview of the engineer's report for the drain.
Good evening. The report for the Fisher Watt drain is a report that was prepared under Section 78 of the Drainage Act, which is for repair and improvement to an existing municipal drain. The Fisher Watt drain was originally constructed in 1978. At the time, in 1978, there was an older existing tile that was already in the ground, and they recommended to put a tile beside the existing and make both tiles part of the municipal drain. So currently there are 2 pipes that make up the Fisher Watt drain. It does outlet into a tile, so it's not outletting into an open channel. It heads downstream a short distance through the monthly drain into an open water course. So there is some tile downstream of the Fisher Watt drain as well. The landowners indicated that the drain is the older drain of the 2. The existing one was in not the greatest condition, not very deep, and the drain as a whole wasn't providing satisfactory drainage in terms of today's design standards. The design standards put out by the Ministry of Agriculture and Food have increased a few times since 1978. So we are recommending that a new tile be put in the ground to replace the older of the two. The existing 1978 drain would remain part of the drain. And we would also be recommending that the road crossings, both of them would be steel and that they should both be replaced at this time with one single pipe. So there'll be one new pipe put across the road at the top end of the drain. There'll be some catch basins put in along the length of the drain to accept surface water. With the larger designs, there's more capacity for surface water to try and reduce the amount of water flowing over top of the ground. There'll be some clearing and grubbing to the edge of the bush. The two tiles currently go through the corner of the bush. And as well, we would have to extend the work parallel to the Barkley drain down to the water course, as it is a 1970s vintage drain, which does not have the capacity to meet today's design standard. We would not be making the new drain parallel to the Barkley drain big enough to increase the entire Barkley drain. It would be just a separate piece of the Fisher Watt, so it would be an entirely separate system when it's finished. And I'll open up to questions.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. I don't know for certain, but there are a number of people here. I assume that some of you are here to speak to the drain, maybe? No questions? Okay, I just want to make sure that if you have any questions, we have the engineer here, we can ask those. Okay, I'll look to council. Oh, no, wait a minute. No one has any questions. I can pull this. Yeah, so we have a motion before us. The Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre receives the Fisher Watt Municipal Drain Report from Mike DeVos of Street Associates dated November 10th, 2023, and authorize that the project proceed, and further that the Court of Revision will meet on March 6, 2024, and further that Councillor Arts, Councillor Shipley, and Deputy Mayor Brennan be appointed to sit as members of the Court of Revision, with the Deputy Mayor being the chair. So is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Cates. Is there any further discussion, comments, questions? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that no one's opposed. It passes. Thank you. And we'll see you later.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. And good night.
Thank you for coming. All righty, moving on to the adoption of the minutes. The motion before us is that the minutes of council meeting held on January 10th, 2024 be adopted as printed. I need a mover. Thank you, Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Arts. Thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, the consent agenda is received as one motion, and we have council members can request if they want to pull one or more item for further action. Yeah. So the motion before us is that consent item 6.1 through 6.6 listed on the January 24th, 2024 agenda be adopted as recommended. Councillor Burrs, Deputy Mayor Brennan. And that is, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, well, yes, go ahead with the questions. Which item is it?
It's item 6.6, through you, Madam Mayor, to Rob. What is this actually attached to? One of our dump trucks, or what do we attach it to?
Through Madam Mayor to Councilor Burrs, so it's actually going to be attached to one of the voters.
Okay, gotcha.
And it was tested this year.
Okay,
I think what it says in the report.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I just want to acknowledge say I always enjoy reading the fire services report and the social media. So I just wanted to give a comment. Thank you.
So Burrs, if you would just push yours.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor, is okay? Anyone else? Any other items? And seeing none, going once, twice. Okay, in that case, I'll call the vote on the motion as read. Councillor Cates and Councillor Arts, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to staff reports. 7.1, we're going to ask Tiffany Sparrow, Director of Corporate Services, to provide an overview of that report. The floor is yours, Tiff.
Oh, so thank you, through you, Mayor DeVete. The council report in front of you is with respect to our tangible capital asset policy. As you can see, the last policy was put in place in April 2009. And this is when the tangible capital asset became applicable to municipalities. So that is when we started to actually record our tangible capital assets in our balance sheet versus expensing them each year. The previous policy did need a little bit of work in order to update it to what our current practices are. I would say, for the most part, when you're looking through this policy, the changes were related to cleaning it up. There was a lot of educational information in the original policy, and this had to do with the fact that back in 2009, this was new for municipalities. So when they took a look at these policies, they added a lot of that information around what it was all about and really digging into the definitions rather than referring people to our public sector accounting standards board or our handbook, which all of this is specifically outlined in section 3150. So at this time, we have updated the policy. One of the items that I would like to bring to council's attention is our value threshold. The value threshold used to be $5,000, and it has been increased to $35,000. This was something that we've been looking at for the last few years, and it is what we're using when we're budgeting with our capital assets. However, with that being said, we do follow the handbook instructions on when an item is to be capitalized, and the dollar threshold is not applicable in those situations. So if it is something that meets the threshold to be capital under our tangible capital assets, under section 3150, we do actually capitalize that. However, when we're looking at our capital budget, now we're looking at those things above 35,000 in order for it to be presented in that way to council. We did clean up items within the policy related to the useful life of assets that are being used. And you'll see in the appendix, it is more of a range that is being used, and that will tie into our financial statements that council sees annually. Overall, this is part of corporate services initiative for 2024. We will be bringing forward a lot of our financial policies to council. Last year, you'll remember that we did a significant amount of our HR policies. And this year is information technology and finance. So this is the first policy you'll see for finance, but there will be many more. This time, I will open it up for any questions.
Okay, just before we get into questions, I'll also table the motion, the report CPS 05/2024 regarding tangible asset policy be received and that council endorse the updated tangible capital asset policy attached as appendix A1. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Shipley. Questions, comments? I don't see any. In that case, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Tiffany, for that report. And we can now move on to 7.2. Marion Cabral, our county planner, is in attendance tonight to provide an overview of the staff report. And I'll let you present that now, Marion.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to council. So the purpose and effect of the consent application is to create a new residential lot along Railway Avenue in Kamoka for the purposes of constructing one single detached dwelling adjacent to 165 Railway Avenue. As council may recall, this application came before you for a decision about a year ago and was conditionally granted. Upon review of the application, and working towards clearing all of those conditions, the applicant provided a noise and vibration study to CN Rail for review. Upon this review, the applicant is now required to install a crash wall at the back of the property as CN engineer design standards to ensure that any future dwelling would be protected in such a situation of a derailment. Given the significant requirements introduced by CN Rail, the municipality felt that it was appropriate to reissue a new notice of decision for this application and include the requirement to construct a crash wall prior to the issuance of a certificate of consent. The full CN Railway comments are highlighted within the staff report. So CN specifically identified that the proposed setback for the development of 9.16 meters does not meet the minimum required of 30 meters and recommended alternatives to implementing a standard berm, which is normally the requirement for residential development. As such, they did require a crash wall be implemented in addition to other measures that would be incorporated into the building design. Further, CN may consider a reduced setback from the railway property line if it can be demonstrated that adverse impacts can be addressed for the safety and livability of the future residents. So staff are supportive of the amendment to the conditions as a proposed lot. Fabric has not changed from the original application, and it is intended to improve the ability to develop that lot and protect some of the future residents that may be living there. Given the aforementioned, staff recommend that this application be approved with the new condition number 15 included, as this proposal is consistent with the PPS and conforms to local planning policies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that report. Again, we'll table the motion before we have a discussion, and the motion is that consent application B22, 2021, filed by Hussam Al-Mandani. It orders sever a residential lot with a lot frontage of approximately 27.7 meters on Railway Ave and an area approximately 848.5 meters and a retained parcel of frontage, a frontage of approximately 27.7 meters on Railway Ave with an area of 848.5 meters on a property municipally known as 165 Railway Ave be granted, and that the consent application B22, 2021 be subject to 15 conditions that were noted in the staff report, and further that the reasons for granting the consent application include that the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the proposal conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan and the Middlesex Centre official plan, and that the proposal can comply with the Middlesex Centre comprehensive zoning bylaw. Mover, please, and seconder. Councillor Burrs and Councillor Cates. We'll open the floor for questions, comments, discussion. I'll start with you, Councillor Burrs.
Ronald, so, and I guess a question through you to Marion. So this amendment is based on everything that the railway was asking for in conditions, correct, Marion?
Yes, that is correct.
Just the follow-up is, there are other houses along there and none of them have crash barriers like this. So I guess this is the new CN rail standard. So when you do something new, you get that, but the interesting thing is no other house has it. Okay, just a comment.
Is there any other question? Yes, Councillor Cates, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Kind of a comment and a question. I've read this with great detail, and it is so close to the railroad tracks. But the process and details of Marion and Dan doing their job. One of my questions that I did have, I asked the other day, that's been taken care of, is all of the building details will be taken care of in a later step with more of the building permit phase. So I'm fine with that. It's definitely a lot happening here. The crash wall, it's going to be interesting to see that, and nobody else has one. I see that too. One of my questions was, in reading this, Marion, there is variance that's going to also be needed after this, and I'm just curious, is there one or two variances? I'm curious what they are. Thank you.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Kate. So a variance will likely be required, at least for the rear yard setback from the railway corridor. Depending on the proposed house or dwelling that's constructed on the property, they might need additional variance, such as a front yard setback if they're trying to move the house forward to Railway Avenue, or side yards. But it would, at the very least, be a reduction in the rear yard setback.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up through you, Madam Mayor. So that's what I wondered. I wasn't sure if there was something about lot coverage too, but okay. So one thing I can't help but wonder here, this person is doing all this work and all these conditions, etc., but then they still are hinging on the hope that they're going to get minor variance approved, right?
Yes, that's correct. So they can go forward with creating the lot, subject to all the conditions. But to actually have a developable lot, they would need a variance to go forward with that.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands, so we have a motion before us. I'll call the vote on that. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Thank you for that, then, and we can now move into a committee of adjustment. The motion before us is that council adjourn its regular meeting at 6:10 PM in order to sit as a committee of adjustment under under section 45 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to consider the minor variance applications that are listed on the January 24th, 2024 council agenda. Mover, please, and seconder. Councillor Arts, thank you, and Councillor Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, so members of the public who wish to receive further notification on any of the minor variance applications that are being considered today, I ask that you please send an email to planning@middlesexcenter.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record. If you have questions on any of the applications that are being heard tonight, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. Members of the public that have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address council and provide comments on the applications. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our R-zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. There is an order of proceedings, and that is the same for each of the applications. The order is as follows. First of all, I'll ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and hearing and to present the staff report. Then the applicant or their agent has the opportunity to speak to the application. And after that, the public who have registered to speak or who are in attendance will be asked for their comments. Please state your name so that it can be noted in the meeting minutes. Then the municipal clerk or planner will note any additional comments that have been received from circulated agencies and the public not included in the planning report. And then the members of the committee can ask questions of the applicant and or staff. And then finally, I'll ask for motions regarding the applications. So first, we have to ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application. So 8.1, again, Marian Cabral is the county planner who's going to be doing this report. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the rest of the committee. The purpose of this report is to provide the committee with a recommendation regarding a new minor variance application for the property located at 24089 Bear Creek Road. The purpose and effect of this application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw as it relates to the minimum interior side yard setback for an accessory building. The applicant is requesting a minimum setback of 0.6 meters or 2 feet, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum of 1.5 meters for an accessory structure. The effect of this proposal is to facilitate the construction of one accessory building in the front and side yard of this property. So as council may recall, this applicant recently requested and was granted a minor variance to the location of the accessory building, and that was in the front yard and to limit the size of the building. At that time, conditions were recommended to limit the size of the structure to no larger than the house, and that the building be located on the south interior side yard away from the neighboring residential properties. Due to a conflict with the location of an existing well, the applicant is now proposing to reduce the overall size of that structure, but is also requesting to reduce the interior side yard setback to gain enough space to place the building in that south interior side yard as conditioned in the original variance. So notice of this application was circulated to area residents. At the time of writing this report, staff did not receive any comments from the public. It is noted in our staff report that there is a letter of objection. This is primarily related to the previous application, but as a result of this new application, that neighbor does not have any further concerns regarding this proposal. So staff did review whether to consider the variance minor based on the location, context of the development of the lands, and existing characteristics of this neighborhood. The proposed decrease in the interior side yard setback does not adversely impact any neighboring development to the south. Further, the impact of the proposal can be considered minor in that it would be keeping with the character of the area. The scale of the accessory building does not significantly change from what we initially reviewed, and staff consider an appropriate use of the lands, and it maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan. Further, the proposed setback would maintain 2 feet of clearance around the building, and this would allow for future maintenance of this building and account for appropriate setbacks for drainage. And finally, planning staff noted that in the updated zoning bylaw, which is not yet in effect, the amended provisions for the accessory buildings have a minimum setback of 0.6 meters. Therefore, staff find that this proposal will be consistent with those future regulations. So as noted in the staff report, planning staff are satisfied that the proposed minor variance can be supported and recommended that the application be approved as the proposal meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. And this opinion is provided prior to any public meeting and without the benefit of all comments from the public. Staff advise committee to consider all comments when making a decision on the application. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. If the applicant is here and would like to speak to this application, the floor is yours if you'd like.
Members of the council, thanks for seeing me. I said I was back here in September. My only concern is I have a letter of the opposition of my neighbor, and I would just like to bring up a few points, if I could, in regards to maybe potentially proposing the footprint of the house that you have in front of you of the building to the north property. I wonder if that would be feasible at all.
The application in front of us is one thing. I think you're asking to change what we're deciding on. Yeah, and I'm not, Marion, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, if it's related to a new building or any other building, then it would be different from the application before us.
Okay, my apologies. When I was here in September, I proposed for 40 by 60 to the north, which was declined, 30 by 40 to the north, and which I was allowed a 40 by 60 to the south. Well, with the 40 by 60, no one takes into consideration the well that's there.
So I'll get the clerk to explain the process as it relates, and then you can decide. We can decide how you want to move forward.
Through the chair, thanks a lot. And I may call on our county planner to jump in here and support me. As I understand it, the minor variance application is before us here this evening. That's what council's received the report on. That's what we've received the information on. That's what council's prepared to deal with this evening. Under the Planning Act, my understanding is an applicant can amend their application up to the time of a public meeting. We're here at a public meeting, so there's an opportunity to amend the application under the Planning Act rules. Having said that, without the benefit of anyone having a chance to analyze an amended application, my recommendation would be, if we're proposing to do something different than what's before council tonight, if with your agreement, we would ask council to defer this report so that the planner has an opportunity to chat with yourself, hear your amended proposal, bring back a staff report that reflects that proposal and gives all the information for everybody here to make a decision. Is there anything you'd like to add to that at this time, Mary?
Yes, and possibly just ask for clarification from the applicant if they're looking for council or for the committee to reevaluate the initial request to have the accessory building located on the northern portion of the site. Is that what you're still requesting to go forward?
Yes, the person I was talking to as far as building planners is not here tonight, but between emails and phone calls, I wanted to take what you have in front of you and apply it to the north as a smaller building from what I originally requested. It's not what was granted, I think, to the north. It's somewhere in the middle for a feasible size that I would like to apply for. It's still the same as what you see before you.
So if the building is smaller, proposed now, as opposed to bigger, which is what normally happens, is there any reason that you see that we can't go forward?
I believe that, so the neighboring resident who did have initial concerns, at the time of the previous application, they may want to still come forward if the application has changed. Also, we don't know the size or scale of the building that's proposed now. If it is smaller, that might help the situation, but we can't provide an opinion on that at the moment.
So the operative word here is significantly changed.
Yes.
So council wants, we can vote to defer this and then come back with the report. So wait, you have a question though, Councillor Cates, go ahead, ask.
So just to clarify, are we not looking tonight at changing the setback to 2 feet?
I think we have a revised application coming before us. So it would be an integrated report that would look at this part that's approved, as well as the pieces with respect to the significant change of the footprint. Is that correct?
So through the chair, what I would recommend to the committee is you have two options here. You can approve the application that is before you, or consider the application, approve or deny that's before you. But the applicant has indicated they're wishing to make a change to that. Based on that, my recommendation would be that this matter is referred back to staff for an opportunity for staff to confirm the particulars of the build, the site location, and for this to come forward at that time for a decision council. Yeah, so those are the options before the committee at this time.
You, Madam Mayor, I just want some clarification. The application first came to us on the north side of the existing house. We granted something to the south side of the house, I believe. That it was recommended go to the south side of the house, but now we're back to the north side again with a smaller building. Is that the general, what's happened?
Yes, it is, because when I was granted a larger building to the south, it doesn't show the well. And then I would have to move a propane tank, numerous trees, where if I propose small, I would go defer it and come back to it, like what you see, the 35 by 50 to the north, which is all my property. I'm away from the property line, I'm away from the neighbors, and less trees to remove, is where I would like to have the opportunity to have a choice of either or.
So I'm asking councillors then to move to defer this and refer it back to staff for a cleanup and organization, so that what you want to actually do is what we're going to decide on. So I have Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Burrs, all in favor? Thank you, and that is carried. So we'll see you again. Okay, good luck. All righty. Yep.
Do we have to cancel anything, or does this cleanup take care of everything?
Yeah, I'll ask staff to address that in the report, which comes back forward to council. So we'll have them address, is there anything needed on what the previous decision of council? How does whatever amended proposal affect the previous approval? We'll make sure that's addressed.
Then have an integrated, cleaned up, holistic report that addresses all of the questions and concerns. We can make a decision and then the applicant can move forward with their work. Okay? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So we need to move on to number 8.2, which is another application for minor variance. Again, Marion will be presenting that report. The floor is yours when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the committee. The purpose of this report is to provide the committee with a recommendation for a minor variance for the property located at 4605 Woodhull Road, which is located on the west side of Woodhull Road and north of Highway 402. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw as it relates to rebuilding a structure or building that was lost by fire and increasing the size of the non-conforming use. Specifically, the zoning bylaw allows existing uses to continue to be used until such time that the use ceases. and the bylaw allows for the replacement of a structure or building that was destroyed by fire or other natural causes in the same basic dimensions or on the same site within 3 years from the date of destruction. So the applicant is seeking to locate the new building approximately 40 meters north of the previous building and increase the size of this building from 785 square meters to approximately 1,013 square meters. The owner proposes to rebuild and expand essentially their structure related to the excavating business. This building would consolidate some of the operations, include some office space and some storage space into a single building. The applicant has also advised that a new septic system will be installed to service this new building and that a connection to the existing well will be installed. Notice of this application was circulated to area residents, agencies, and municipal staff at the time of writing this report and leading up to the committee meeting. Staff did not receive any comments from the public. The chief building official indicated no objection to the proposal. However, the applicant would need to obtain site plan approval for the expansion and relocation of the new building. The Public Works and Engineering, again, did not provide any concerns related to engineering matters. However, they note that the expansion appears significant from a non-conforming use and that some of the agricultural land will be consumed due to the relocation of the building. Further, and in concurrence with the CBO, the site plan approval would be required if that building is relocated and expanded. Additionally, we did receive comments from MTO. They reviewed the application and indicated that MTO building and land use permits as well as signage permits will be required before any demolition, grading, construction, or alteration of the site commences. And this would be required regardless of whether a new building is relocated or on the existing site. So planning staff reviewed the application and note that while the use is non-conforming and would generally not be permitted as a new use today, the property is undersized and would not likely be viable for any agricultural uses. Further, the property owner did obtain a rezoning at the time of the Delaware Township when that was in existence prior to the current zoning bylaw, and that rezoning did permit an excavating business. Staff find that the larger building would help consolidate these operations and minimize some of the outdoor storage that is previously seen around the building. This use is not expected or anticipated to increase any nuisances such as smoke, traffic, noise, or vibration. And again, planning staff acknowledge that this use does not conform to the uses and goals for the agricultural area, and that the increase in lot coverage is minimal across the site. As such, staff find that the requested variance can be supported subject to a condition that site plan approval be granted to address a number of matters, including outdoor storage, servicing, or buffering between the site and some of the rural residential properties in the area, and that the applicant obtain required permits from MTO. Staff recommend approval of the minor variance subject to these conditions for the reasons that the variance complies with the general intent of the official plan and meets the tests of the 4 tests of minor variance. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. Is the applicant here and do you wish to speak to the application? The floor is yours if you'd like to make comments. If not, then okay. Perfect, thank you. There are no members of the public who requested to delegate on this report, so I'm going to ask, is there anyone in attendance who would like to? Or virtually, I guess. No one's there, okay. So I have to table it first. So I would like a mover and a seconder for the motion, which is that the minor variance application A25, 2023, filed by Judith Ann Russell and Richard Dennis Russell in order to expand a legal non-conforming use by rebuilding a structure lost to fire and increasing its size by approximately 228 meters and locating it at approximately 40 meters north of the previous building for a property municipally known as 4605 Woodhall Road be granted, subject to the following conditions: that the site plan agreement has been entered into with the corporation for the lands as a result of the expansion and relocation of an existing building or use on the land prior to any development on that land, and that prior to the development of the land, the owner shall obtain any required permits from the Ministry of Transportation, and further that the reasons for granting a minor variance application A25, 2023 include that the request complies with the general intent and purpose of Middlesex Center's official plan and comprehensive zoning bylaw. The request is minor in nature and the request represents appropriate development on the subject property. Mover, please, Councillor Burrs and Councillor Cates, thank you. So I will look now to questions from the committee. Anybody? Clarification, nothing? Okay, everyone's shaking their head. In that case, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Good luck with the project. All right. Okay, and now we have to move into public meetings. The motion before us is that the Committee of Adjustment adjourn at 6:30 p.m. and council resume their regular meeting, and that the council move into public meetings at 6:30 p.m. pursuant to the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, to consider the applications listed on the January 24th, 2024 council agenda. A mover, please, and Councillor Shipley. Second, Councillor Arts, all in favor. And so we are now sitting in public meeting. So before I begin, members of the public that wish to receive further notification on this application, again, you're asked to please send an email to planning@middlesexcenter.ca requesting further notification. Be advised that the comments that are expressed in written material presented are a matter of public record. If you have any questions on the applications that will be heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. And again, members of the public who may request to speak on this will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to address council to provide comments on the applications. Again, it will be in keeping with our procedural bylaw and our zone policy. And I would remind participants to use respectful language, uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. The proceeding, the order is exactly the same as in the other, as when we're sitting as a committee. So we can move now to 9.1, which is an application for zoning bylaw amendment ZBA number 19, 2023 for 13433 Ilderton Road, filed by Kelly and Carl Bulteca. I hope it's it. Sorry. So Marion will be giving the overview of staff. And if you'd like to proceed with your report, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the rest of council. So this report is to provide a recommendation regarding the rezoning application for the lands known as 13433 Ilderton Road, located on Ilderton Road, east of Hyde Park in the community of Ilderton. The purpose of the amendment is to rezone the lands from urban residential first density to urban residential second density. And this rezoning would permit the development of 2 semi-detached dwellings on a separate parcel. The 2 semi-detached dwellings are proposed to be 2 stories in height and have individual access and a driveway to Ilderton Road. So the subject land is vacant of any development and was conditionally severed from the property, which contains an existing single detached dwelling. The land is surrounded by low-density residential uses, and agricultural lands exist within proximity to this parcel of land, primarily to the east. Staff note that this application is generally consistent with the PPS and policies of the county and local official plans. Notice of this application was circulated to area residents, agencies, and staff. Planning did not receive any comments from the public. However, we did speak to an area resident who had concerns with the proposed driveways and wanted to ensure that it does not affect access to the community mailbox. Further, they are concerned about the possibility of other nearby properties that are able to intensify their land or sever in a similar way that this parcel did, and its impact on property values as well as traffic. Municipal and county staff did not have any further concerns regarding this amendment, and most of their comments were addressed through the severance application. So this applicant provided elevation drawings for their dwelling, and it appears that the proposed dwellings will have a similar scale and form as the existing single detached dwellings within proximity to this property, and that would allow for better integration with the surrounding community. Further, the proposed development will conform to the provisions of the UR2, or the urban residential second density zone, which is very similar to that of the existing UR1 zone. And finally, planning staff will also note that recent changes to the Planning Act permit up to 2 additional residential units, or a total of 3 units, on a parcel of urban residential land. This would allow for properties that are currently zoned UR1 to intensify their land without needing a zoning bylaw amendment. However, due to the form of the proposed development, specifically the applicant is again proposing the semi-detached dwellings, it's not permitted. However, within the Planning Act, they would be allowed a duplex or a triplex. So again, because of that form, that is the reason why they are required to have a zoning bylaw amendment. Therefore, staff find that the effect of the rezoning does not significantly differ than that of the as-of-right permissions for the additional residential units. So given the reasons provided in the staff report, staff recommend that the council approve the requested rezoning as the zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement as well as local and county official plans. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Okay, so the owners of the property, Kelly and Carl Lipka, are in attendance to answer questions from the committee. They'll be here virtually if there are things that we want answered. Is anyone here wishing to comment? Members of the public? No. Okay. And yeah, we're ready to go here. So the motion before us is that the zoning bylaw amendments that ZBA 19/2023 filed by Kelly and Carl Lipka to rezone a property known as 13433 Elderton Road from urban residential first density UR1 zone to urban residential second density UR2 zone be approved, and that the implementing bylaw be forwarded to council for consideration once a deposited reference plan has been provided to the satisfaction of the municipality. Is there a mover, please, and seconder? Councillor Bruce, Deputy Mayor Brennan. All righty, so questions from council, comments? Go ahead. Councillor Bruce, floor is yours.
Just for clarification through you to, is this one side-by-side unit or two side-by-side units? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, so it'd be two side-by-side units on one lot. So two dwellings in total. Yeah.
Thank you. Mine is maybe just a little bit more of curiosity question, maybe. I'm wondering when you read this and it talks about two entrances off the Ilderton Road, has the county already approved those two entrances? That's my wondering.
Yep, that's a great question. I did confirm with the county engineer that he would have no concerns if there are two additional driveways and accesses approved for this development, leading up to the individual lots.
Thank you. I just also want to add, I think that it's nice to see some, duplexes, semis, just to add to a little bit to the affordability of housing.
Anyone else? Councillor Heston.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment as well. I agree with Sue. It's nice to have some infill, which is what we were looking for. And so this is the first step, the first one, I think, on Main Street. So we'll see how that goes over. Thanks.
And thank you for that. If there's nothing else, we have a motion before us. I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. Okay, with that, then we have a motion before us that public meetings adjourn at 6:38 p.m. and council resume the regular meeting. Mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Cates and Councillor Burrs, all in favor? And that is carried. There are no notices of motion. Nope. Okay. So next item is correspondence. The motion before us is that correspondence items 10.1 through 10.3 on the January 24th, 2024 agenda be received as information. Is there a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Heffernan. Are there items here that we want to speak to or comment on? Councillor Cates, go ahead, the floor is yours. All righty. Councillor Heffernan is seconding then, and
Yeah, so that's the motion for.
so I'll call the vote on that item only now. Before we get there.
Yeah.
Yes, so do you have a question? Yes, go ahead, Councillor, let's ask your question.
Well. Through you, Madam Mayor, after I read this report, I went online and I Googled heavy equipment training. And there's lots of private companies that do it. There's several colleges that do it. So I don't see the point of this resolution saying they want, because it's already there. And I don't want them competing with private industry that's already there. So I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands, so I can call the vote on item, the AO's motion, which is we're dealing with separately. So all in favor of that motion? And opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to 12.2 and 3, the Sauble Bayfield and the Board of Health. If there's nothing comment on, I'll call the vote on those. All in favor of those two? And opposed? Seeing none, that is carried as well. Alrighty then. I'll look to Deputy Mayor Brennan to give us an update from the County Council meeting held on the 16th of January. Floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, we had a meeting on January the 16th. We had a short meeting. There's a tender awarded for a bridge at $2.2 million and plus taxes, but even with the taxes that are on that, went under budget. There was like 8 different companies bid on the bridge, which was good to see. So the budget was a total of $2.6 million, so it come in just a little bit under that. So that's a good news story. We received the warden's activity report. This is for the past warden from October, December. Different functions and meetings, there were 48 over that period of time for the warden. And we look forward to seeing that number from our new warden, which will probably double. We talked, there was a lengthy discussion. There was a couple of people there about the policing board that Middlesex County has to have, and that's upon a fair length of discussion and what was all going to entail. From January 22nd to January 28th, there's a curling championship going on in Dorchester, so it's still going on for the next couple or 3 days. So if anybody wants to go there, everybody was invited to go take a look, see it at the curling championship going on in there, and that was the bulk of the meeting. Thank you.
Questions on that? I don't see any. Okay. In that case, the next item on our agenda is a closed session. So the motion before us is that the council for the municipality of Middlesex Center adjourn to closed session at 6:43 p.m. pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss the following matters. Under section 2E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, that is Ontario Land Tribunal, summary of active appeals and litigation update, Ward 4 development. And under section 2F, advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, that is litigation update, Ward 4 development. Is there a mover for this, please, and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Brennan, Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that is carried. So we'll have to wait for everything to close down and then we can move